What's up, guys? Lenzerheide World Cup is going down tomorrow. Quali's just wrapped up. Jackson Goldstone and Loic Bruni are going to be battling it out for the overall title. It is really exciting. I don't remember a World Cup battle overall coming down to the wire like this, although perhaps 2013, the late, great Steve Smith versus G. Atherton. But enough of that. Ultimately, what today's video is about is going to be the three prodigies that are going to be moving up next year: Asa, Till, and Max, and specifically Asa Vermette, the American prodigy that just absolutely blasted onto the scene. I would say really in 2023 at Snowshoe World Cup. That's kind of when the mountain biking world, kind of a small world admittedly, but the mountain biking, the downhill world was put on notice. He got course sweeper duties, and he looked absolutely sensational on what is a notoriously difficult and tricky track. It's challenging, it's not very steep, so it's really not an easy track to look good on. And Asa Vermette, I mean, it is kind of a localish track to him, but everybody was just astounded at how aggressive and fast this young, at the time, probably 16-year-old course sweeper was. And that was kind of when the world was put on notice. He was kicking butt in the national series before that. I believe he won a national enduro title beating Richie Rude. If it wasn't that year, it was the following year. To sum it up, he came on the scene strong. Nico Mullally with his framework squad scooped him up, and his World Cup debut was hotly anticipated, and it did not disappoint, winning the first two rounds. Everybody, including myself, was pretty much assuming that the future of World Cup downhill was going to be a battle between Jackson and Asa. But what we did not know at the time is these two French brothers on the commensal squad, they were still kind of figuring things out. But once they got their mojo working, pretty much to date, from that moment to now, Asa has not really had an answer for him. He had an incredible year last year, winning 3 World Cups and World Champs, but this year, it's a really interesting question. Is Asa overhyped? Was he just a little bit too hotly anticipated? I still remember the Red Bull video that got 1.5 million views, the next superstar of downhill. He got the fresh Red Bull lid. Like, he was poised to take over the world. I can tell you Jackson Goldstone was not too happy with all the excitement he was getting. I don't know that firsthand, but just the competitor that he is. But Asa Vermette was coming into the elite ranks with the kind of hype that I would say Finn Isles had. Hasn't worked out particularly well, admittedly, or Jackson Goldstone, who himself has been lighting the world on fire. But now, after his second junior year, ultimately this is going to be his last year. He's going to be moving up. He is not won an overall, and frankly, this year there is just no getting around it. It has been disappointing. Yes, he won Red Bull Hardline, but let's just keep it real for a second. There's like 3 or 4 dudes that show up to that race that are actually racers. The time gaps, like, to me, winning hardline, especially depending on how deep the field is, does not mean that much. The French never show up just strategically. They're too risk averse. Bruni, Omri, like, literally, if you look at the history of hardline, many of the best racers of the past, 6 or 7 years, it's been Omri and Loic. They haven't shown up. And so even though Asa did tick that box at Wales, it, to me, doesn't necessarily make up for what has been a very disappointing season, and ultimately kind of the coming out party, although this already happened last year, but the Allren brothers. Yeah, the super dynamic brother story. We already got it in motocross. Jet Lawrence and Hunter Lawrence are dominating 1-2, typically with Jet in the lead and Hunter in second. And who would have thought that we're going to potentially, I mean, I'm not trying to get ahead of myself, but it looks like we might potentially have a scenario similar to that. I'm not saying they're ready to beat Jackson Goldstone or even Loic Bruni, but when you look at these qualifying times, and Asa included, these dudes, once they move up next year, they are going to be fighting for top 10s at worst, likely top 5s, and they're probably going to be winning races in their first season. And so, in my opinion, I would say it's more so that we just didn't appreciate sort of Max and Till Allren, and they were probably underhyped. Because if you look at the qualifying times and the race times that Asa is laying down, Max and Till, they are typically top 5 elites, top 10 elites. I know they've had at least one race this year, the fastest time. With as competitive as the junior category is, and in all sports, this is where it's trending, is the younger and younger sort of athletes are beating, whether it's in road cycling, Pogacar, motocross, Jet, Hunter, Chase. These younger and younger prodigies are just developing faster and faster. And so now the junior category is probably one of the hottest categories to look at. When you look out a couple of years forward, it's hard to imagine that the majority of the World Cup wins and overalls are not going to be going to Jackson, Asa, Max, and Till. Yeah, they're not going to win all of it, but it's hard to imagine them not winning the lion's share. So yeah, this year has been disappointing for Asa Vermette, but the good thing about the junior category is once you move up, nobody cares. It's one of those, how often do people talk about Loic Brunis or Omri Pirons, or Gwyn didn't even compete in the junior category? It's irrelevant. It doesn't amount to anything. It's 2 years, and especially because it's in your kind of development trend. And so Asa Vermette could easily come back after an off season next year and beat Max and Till. Like, it's way too early in their sort of growth to look at the pecking order, this year and assume that, okay, well, Asa just doesn't have an answer for Max or Till. I don't believe that to be the case. I mean, it could be the case, but it's too early to tell, and it is going to be so exciting because I can only imagine the fire that is under, Nico Mullally and the team and Asa, because there is a lot of excitement on him winning. Nico has talked about how much excitement the sponsors have to have this kind of golden goose, and the expectation is to win, period. When Asa does not win in the junior category, it is a disappointment, just pure and simple. But I don't think it's that he was overhyped as much as Till and Max were underhyped. We just happen to have a junior category with 3 prodigy level talents that are likely going to be winning a whole lot of elite World Cup races and likely overalls if they can get by Jackson Goldstone, who has been dominating this year. And like I said in the beginning of the video, I believe Loic Bruni is going extra hard because he probably sees the writing on the wall. This might be the last hurrah. Jackson, I think, is far from peaking, and so if he's struggling to beat him this year, it's going to get a whole lot more difficult in the years to come. So I want to hear what you guys think. I know today's video is kind of all over the place. Lens or hide tomorrow. Let's hope Asa can get a win. That would be awesome. He needs it. It has been just a pretty crappy season, but when you're young, that's happened. You're learning. He's probably still figuring out things with the bike. Is the commensal probably a little bit better than the frameworks? I would guess so. They certainly have more resources, but that's not to say the frameworks couldn't, Nico and the team over there, and really Nico himself, super intelligent. I'm sure they're going to be busting their ass over the course of the offseason. Come in next year. First race is, I think, like South Korea, right? How cool is that? But anyways, let me know what you guys think. Overhyped, underhyped? Who do you got for the World Cup titles in the years to come? Do you think Jackson has stomped his name on it, or do you think Asa, Max, and Till are going to be there nipping at his heels, or even besting the prodigy child that is Jackson Goldstone? So let me know what you guys think. Hope you enjoy the video, and yeah, leave a comment.